Welcome to 2025, a year that's already shaping up to be one of the most consequential in recent American history. Across the country, tariffs are once again at the center of economic and political debate, reshaping the U.S. economy in ways both visible and hidden. From bustling ports to humming factories, the impact is being felt everywhere. But what exactly is a tariff? Simply put, it's a tax placed on goods brought in from other countries. This makes imported products more expensive, nudging consumers to choose American-made alternatives. For businesses and families alike, these changes can mean higher prices at the checkout and new challenges for companies that rely on global supply chains. This year, President Trump has made tariffs the cornerstone of his economic strategy, rolling out a series of new import taxes that have sparked fierce debate in Washington and beyond. Supporters say these measures protect American jobs and industries, while critics warn of rising costs and international backlash. In February, the administration targeted Canada, China, and Mexico with new tariffs, officially to pressure these countries on the issue of fentanyl trafficking. The move was controversial, drawing both praise and criticism from lawmakers and the public. By April, the so-called Liberation Day tariffs swept across more than 70 countries, with some rates soaring as high as 50%. Soon after, a blanket 10% global tariff was imposed on all imports, sending shockwaves through international markets and trade partners. These sweeping actions have disrupted global supply chains, slowed down production lines, and left store shelves emptier than usual. Businesses are scrambling to adapt, and consumers are feeling the pinch as prices rise and uncertainty grows. At the heart of the turmoil lies a fundamental constitutional question. Who truly has the authority to impose tariffs? Is it the president, acting under emergency powers, or Congress, which the Constitution explicitly grants control over commerce and duties? Lower courts have mostly ruled against the president's sweeping use of tariff powers, but for now, the tariffs remain in effect as the Supreme Court prepares to weigh in. The legal battle has drawn national attention, with protesters and supporters gathering outside the court. The outcome of this case could fundamentally redraw the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, setting a precedent that will echo for years, if not decades, to come. As the nation watches and waits, it's clear that this is a pivotal moment for the country, one that will shape the future of American trade, law, and leadership for generations. Let's break down how these tariffs work, and why they matter to so many Americans. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on goods that are imported from other countries. When the government decides to impose a tariff, it's usually aiming to make foreign products more expensive, hoping that consumers will buy more American-made goods instead. But the reality of who actually pays these tariffs is more complicated than it might seem. For example, when the U.S. imposes a 10% tariff on an imported bicycle, it's the American importer who pays that tax up front. This cost doesn't just disappear, it's usually added to the price tag, meaning that by the time the bicycle reaches the store, it's more expensive for the consumer. This process repeats across thousands of products from electronics to groceries. The result? Higher prices for everyday goods, whether you're shopping for a new TV, picking up groceries, or replacing a car part. These price hikes can sneak up on families, making it harder to stretch each paycheck. Small and medium businesses are hit hardest by these tariffs. Companies like Learning Resources and Hand to Mind, which rely on imported materials or products, suddenly face millions in extra costs. For many, these added expenses threaten not just profits, but jobs and even the survival of the business itself. Owners are forced to make tough choices, raise prices, cut staff, or absorb the losses. For everyday consumers, the impact is a steady rise in prices at the checkout counter. Whether you notice it on your grocery bill or when shopping for back-to-school supplies, these increases contribute to overall inflation, making the cost of living more challenging for millions of families. President Trump has argued that tariffs bring in billions of dollars and that foreign countries are footing the bill. However, most economists point out that it's actually American businesses and consumers who end up paying these costs, not the foreign exporters. The money collected from tariffs does go to the U.S. Treasury, but it's paid by American importers, not by foreign governments. This distinction is crucial, because it means the financial burden stays within the U.S. economy. The administration argues that this short-term pain is necessary to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., boost domestic jobs, and reduce reliance on foreign goods. Supporters believe that over time, these policies could help rebuild American industry. But for businesses and families, the financial strain is immediate and real. Higher costs can mean difficult decisions, cutting back on spending, delaying investments, or even letting employees go. The debate over tariffs isn't just about economics, it's about fairness, responsibility, and who ultimately bears the cost. It's a conversation happening in boardrooms, at kitchen tables, and in the halls of Congress. As the legal battle over these tariffs unfolds, the stakes for American wallets and jobs couldn't be higher. The outcome could determine whether jobs are lost or created, and how secure families feel about their financial future. The decisions made now will shape the future of trade, prices, and economic policy for years to come. Lawmakers, business leaders, and families alike are watching closely. For now, the pain is being felt across the country, touching every corner of the economy, from small businesses to working families, reminding us that the true cost of tariffs is more than just a number on a balance sheet. President Trump bypassed Congress using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, to justify the tariffs. IEEPA gives the president broad authority during a national emergency, and the White House argues that crises like fentanyl and economic threats qualify. The administration claims IEEPA's language is broad enough to include tariffs, and that Congress would have excluded them if it wanted to. They insist courts should defer to the president on national security and foreign policy. The Major Questions Doctrine, requiring clear congressional authorization for big policies, has been cited by lower courts to challenge the tariffs. But the administration argues this doctrine shouldn't limit the president, especially in foreign affairs. In their view, the president is acting decisively to protect the nation, not overreaching. Now that claim of executive power faces its biggest test yet. Challengers, small businesses, industry groups, and states argue the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to set tariffs. They point to Article 1, Section 8. Congress regulates commerce and levies duties. IEEPA, they say, was never meant to let the president create his own tariff regime. The law doesn't even mention tariffs. They cite the 1952 Youngstown case where the Supreme Court limited presidential emergency powers when Congress hadn't authorized them. The challengers warn that letting the president impose massive taxes without Congress sets a dangerous precedent. This isn't just about prices, it's about preserving the separation of powers. If unchecked, future presidents could claim sweeping authority over economic policy. For them, the stakes are nothing less than the structure of American government. Lower federal courts have mostly ruled against the Trump administration's tariffs, challenging the legal foundation of these economic measures. The Court of International Trade and a federal judge in D.C. found the use of IEEPA for tariffs legally shaky, questioning the administration's interpretation of the law. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit delivered a major blow, ruling the president lacked clear congressional authorization for such sweeping tariffs. This decision underscores the importance of checks and balances in the U.S. government. The court said IEEPA is silent on tariffs, and Congress would have been explicit if it meant to hand over that power. This interpretation limits the executive branch's ability to unilaterally impose economic measures. The Major Questions Doctrine played a key role. Big economic moves need clear congressional approval. This doctrine ensures that significant policy decisions are made with legislative oversight. Despite these rulings, the tariffs remain in effect while the administration appeals. This ongoing legal battle creates uncertainty for international trade and economic stability. The legal limbo continues, with billions at stake for businesses and consumers. Companies are grappling with increased costs, and consumers may face higher prices for goods. Now, the Supreme Court will have the final say. Their decision will be pivotal in determining the extent of presidential power in economic matters. The outcome will set a precedent for presidential power and economic policy, potentially reshaping the landscape of U.S. trade relations for years to come. After defeats in lower courts, the Trump administration quickly petitioned the Supreme Court. The justices agreed to fast-track the case, scheduling arguments for November. The Supreme Court must now interpret both the Constitution's Commerce Clause and IEEPA. They'll weigh the president's emergency authority against Congress's explicit power over trade and taxes. With a conservative majority, some expect deference to presidential power, but the outcome is far from certain. Some justices value strict separation of powers and may side with Congress. Others may be influenced by free market principles and skepticism of tariffs. Legal experts are divided. The stakes are enormous. The court's decision will set a precedent for executive power and the future of American trade policy. The nation waits for a ruling that could reshape the balance of power. The Supreme Court's decision could go two ways. If the court sides with the president, it expands executive power. Future presidents could impose tariffs unilaterally in any declared emergency. The tariffs would stay, and legal challenges would end. If the court sides with the challengers, it reaffirms Congress's authority over trade and taxes. The tariffs would be struck down, and billions might be refunded to importers. This would restore the traditional balance of power and require major economic policies to go through Congress. The ruling will set a powerful precedent for how America governs trade and executive authority. The stakes couldn't be higher for the country's future. The real-world impact of this case is massive. Tariffs have already raised costs for businesses, leading to layoffs, higher prices, and economic uncertainty. If upheld, these costs could become permanent, fueling inflation and slowing growth. Striking down the tariffs could boost the economy, lower prices, and restore stability for businesses. The case also affects America's global relationships. Unilateral tariffs have strained alliances and triggered trade disputes. A ruling limiting presidential power could signal a return to stable, rules-based trade policy. The decision will shape not just the economy, but America's role in the world. At stake is the predictability and fairness of U.S. economic policy. This battle over tariffs is more than an economic debate, it's a test of the American system. The Supreme Court must decide where presidential power ends and Congress's authority begins. The outcome will ripple from Washington to every American household. A ruling for the administration could forever shift the balance of power toward the presidency. A ruling against could reinforce the constitutional order and keep economic power with Congress. This is a defining moment for American democracy and the future of economic policy. The Supreme Court's decision will shape the nation for generations.